Hello future tech leaders, I am Sindhuja. Based on my own experience, I know that learning the right skills can shape our future. What if I say learning was as thrilled as the tech world itself? There we go. At CloudFoundation, that's exactly what you will experience. From day one, you will be immersed in the interactive sessions and expert-led courses that covers most of the widely used technologies in the zone of data science to cloud computing, which brings more light to the life of a techie. I'm so excited to help you and unlock the true potential of a technology. Well, then why to wait? Let's see what it unfolds.
We'll start with not with healthcare. We'll start with couple of basic terms. When we say we are here to learn a standard, group of rules which will be adhered by a group of people, companies or hospitals. In this case, we will talk about hospitals. I will say a set of rules which will be adhered by hospitals. Now we'll talk about why do we need a standard. What it actually means is, let's say there is an app 1 which is built. There is application 2 which is built. Now considering this application works on JSON and this application also works on JSON. Now if you talk about, let's say this application is for patient registration. Patient registration is nothing but admitting a patient within the application, or you can consider it's an insert query within your database. Let's consider this. I'm not writing the exact, we'll do it. As of now, don't worry about how I am writing the JSON structure. This is just for reference. Let's say now this is app 1 which is built and it accepts a payload. When I say payload, it is nothing but a data. It accepts a payload which is something in this sort, and this, if you send a payload of this sort to app 1, it will register a patient. Now considering app 2, what app 2 has done is app 2 has created, it will also work on JSON, but is it important that it also has MRN as an attribute? It's a different application. It might have a different architect. For example, Sahil is architect for app 1, FHIR is architect for app 2. That is where Sahil for medical record number abbreviation looks good and FHIR on the other hand side said I am looking for smaller attribute values. That is where MRN was brought into picture. Now Sahil, what he did was, rather than saying, now the problem over here is nobody knows Sahil is the first name or K is the first name. What he did is he brought it as an object, and within this, he has given a device that asks if all source estimated traditions. A family will not write more attributes. Considering this, I am talking about only 2 applications. If you look into the healthcare industry, every hospital and every company which is working in healthcare, they are building their own healthcare applications. Considering this, how many payloads do you think will be there? There will be a lot of payloads which will be part of per application and which will be consumed by the application that the data contract is met. Now, if the interoperability needs to be achieved between multiple applications, let's say there is a hospital. Now let's consider there is Apollo Hospital. Apollo Hospital needs to integrate with application 1 and application 2. In this case, what needs to happen if considering Apollo is integrating with app 1? First, they will have to build a contract which will be something like this, and if they are integrating with app 2, they have to build a contract which will be looking in this front. If there is a standard, What is going to happen is the standard will tell you what attribute sets are required. Let's say this is a key. I will just say M1N here. Let's consider there is a standard which is created an application. A person who is building or a company who is building that application is adhering to that standard. Do you think the interoperability use cases can be achieved faster? Standard means it's a set of rules which has to be adhered by a group of other app hospitals, so just like HL7. Then in that case it is yes. That is where we are going to learn couple of healthcare standards. We will talk about what we are going to learn. We are going to learn a couple of healthcare standards, CSS, V2 and FHIR. These are the two healthcare standards we are going to learn. Now, very important part. Are there any other standards? We will definitely look into it. We'll talk about one thing which is LSN or. Anybody knows what is this? That is the organization which is publishing the standard. That is perfectly correct statement. It's a public organization who is working towards improving the healthcare interoperability standards, and they have some of the standards, and the first standard they adopted was or created was HL7 V2. And there are other standards also which are there, which are within HL7. Okay, which is next is FHIR. Another one is CDA. Another one is V3. We would talk about in brief, not in brief about CD and V3, but we will definitely talk about HL7, V2 and V3. But are there any other healthcare standards which prevail in the market which are not adopted by HL7? The answer is yes. The answer is EDI store is one of the standard. There is a DCOM standard which is also there. We will definitely look into all of these. We will first look into Indian healthcare versus US healthcare. This is where I want someone to explain me if anybody has recently visited the hospital. What did they do? What were the steps they followed? For example, let's say you went to the hospital, you spoke at the registration desk, something they might have asked you to do. Then you might have met your primary care provider, which is your doctor. Then you might have said something. Let's say that you have a viral fever and doctor have asked you some tests. How did you perform those tests? And report might have come. How did you showcase those reports to the doctor? Then, looking at the report, doctor said this is a viral fever. You have to take antibiotics. How was that antibiotic prescribed to you? And then you went to pharmacy and then taking the medications. Anybody who can explain, let's consider it's a dummy patient, Jodo. If Jodo is visiting Indian hospital, you can tell me what steps he might have followed. I actually have a newborn at home. My experience of recently visiting a hospital is they asked me to fill a form. When I entered a hospital, they asked me to fill a form and it was a hard copy form. I filled that form and they did a patient registration. In this case, it was my newborn. They did a patient registration and then talking about whatever you told is correct. Then whenever we go to a doctor, whenever doctor came, he asked for a blood test. He will write it on a piece of paper. That is what I did it for my wife also. Every time we had a monthly regular checkup, the doctor was asking, this is the blood test you need to perform on this date. They used to write it on a piece of paper. I used to go to the laboratory. When I go to the laboratory, my wife will give the blood sample. The sample giving of blood sample is known as a specimen. It's a healthcare terminology. Please make a note of it, specimen. When the specimen is collected by the lab technician, the lab technician will process that lab blood test and report will come back. Report will come back. I will take the print of the report and I will showcase it to the doctor. Doctor will look at the report and will prescribe the medications and will also be written on a piece of paper. I will showcase it to the pharmacy. Pharmacy will give me the medications and then I will go back home. We will not talk more about discharge and all. This is very basic of how Indian healthcare is working. It is all with respect to the physical documentation, where you will have to carry the piece of prescription or the report, hard copies of the report, and then the doctor will prescribe you the medications. But in context of US, I might not know how they take the patient details, but considering this is a hospital, patient visits the hospital. Now, once the patient gives the details, now let it be the patient is telling the details about him or her. Once the patient gives the details, whether it's a hard copy or directly to the software. Now these details are registered in Now. Make a note of couple of terms. People might call it as Hospital Information System. People might call it as EMR, which is Electronic Medical Record, or HR Electronic Health Record. Now considering it is a hospital and hospital is using a hospital information system once the patient details are captured. And now you're going and talking to the primary care provider. This is a primary care provider. You just have to tell, this is my details. This is my name. Doctor will have software and he can pull up your records here. It is all electronical. Doctor can pull up your record. Now let's say the doctor needs to prescribe a blood test. In the CPU, in the hospital information system, there is a module. Ordering module is actually known as CPOE, Coded Physician Order Entry. Once the doctor opens that module, let's say this is the patient, this is where he selected blood test and this is, he said sent. This blood test will be sent to a laboratory. Now this is a laboratory. When you will go, you don't have to carry any hard copies. You just have to say, I am patient Jodo or this is my MN. Doctor has prescribed a blood test. They would be able to pull up what is the blood test prescribed. And they will take the specimen once the specimen is taken. Over here, they will send the report back. The report will be sent directly to the primary care provider within the hospital information system. Once the report is sent back, then you just have to go and meet your primary care provider. You just say, I have given the specimen. The report is already out. Can you please look into the report and tell me what is the next step? Doctor will look into the report. Now let's say the report looks like you have a viral fever. Doctor will prescribe you a couple of medications, antibiotics, painkillers, whatever. Once this medication has been provided, it will be done in the pharmacy module. There are different modules which are present within the hospital information system. We will talk about the basic ones because you might not be working on the application building. You might be more with respect to the integration part of it. Now, once the prescription is triggered, it will go to the pharmacy. You just have to again go to the pharmacy and tell this is my name. Doctor has prescribed me a couple of medications. Can you dispatch it? He will look into the prescribed medications and it will also flow electronically to pharmacy module. Then you will take the medications and go back home. There is literally no usage of papers. Everything is electronically transferred. I will tell you one more terminology. I will tell you about two because that is where I started my career. It is meaningful usage stage 2. It might be now, it might be a different stage. I have not read about meaningful usage now. In US, the state government asked hospital to use EMR, EHRs and in return the state government will pay some incentive for meeting those goals. In this case, if you are passing the data electronically and there is a module where you will share the data to the state government for analytic purposes. The state government will incentivize the primary care provider and even the hospital. That is where there was a concept in US which is implementation of meaningful usage and it was done almost in every hospital. I am not sure if a small clinic which a doctor is running by himself. If that also consider if the doctor has also bought an EMR or EHR and he also does all sort of electronic transfer data. But most of the big hospitals where there are different modules. When I talk about modules, it is the patient registration module, admission module, pharmacy module, lab and all the stuff they will consider it. It has to be electronically transferred. Now let's consider this way. This is a patient. This is a laboratory and let's consider this to be the EMR. This is your laboratory. This is your concern. Now usually two things can happen. Considering this to be an internal module, the integration might be available. For example, when hospital will send an order to laboratory will receive it. I will talk about how this happens also. And when laboratory will send back the reports, the hospital will receive it. Now, second thing, talking about the thing which you are saying, that patient is saying that he wants to go to Sunquest, which is a laboratory which is not a part of hospital premises. What is going to happen is, first thing, hospital might think that I have integration with L2, which is laboratory 2. If the answer is yes, well and good. The hospital will send the order and the hospital will say order should go to Sunquest. Very good. If the order integration is there, result will come back directly to the hospital. If not, patient has to carry a hard copy and then the report will come as a hard copy. I am not sure whether this is also allowed or not because doctor usually prescribe orders within the internal laboratory itself or where the integration is there because hospital has paid for that integration. I am not sure whether this use case will exist or not. That patient will say, I don't want to go to this laboratory. If that is the case, two things can only happen. Whether the integration is there. If yes, well and good. If not, then hard copies has to be done. Report-wise, I will show in Indian context also. They have a portal. Even if the report goes outside, it will be uploaded onto a portal. You can download that report and you can showcase it to the primary care provider. That is how here also it worked. But I took the hard copies. I downloaded the reports from the portal which was uploaded by the laboratory and I showcased it to the primary care provider. even if it is an internal lab and external lab, because we had a scenario where the test was sent outside because that was not performed within the hospital premises. But only thing was this hospital had a tie-up with this lab. That is where they were able to upload the report on the portal. This is how Indian vs US healthcare is working. Now, how is this implemented? Now talking about how is this implemented, it is also on the same lines. This is implemented using, we learnt about a different standards. I will just copy paste from here. As of now, you don't worry. What is there in HL7 V2? What is there in FHIR? We will talk briefly about HL7 V2 and FHIR. How is this handled? When I say the data will be when the patient registration happens and you go to the primary care provider, the details will already be available with the primary care provider. Order is placed in the CPOE application and the order will be available in the CPOE application. You can see that the doctor will prescribe you the medication. Looking at the report, and how is this actually happening? This can happen using HIR also, but FHIR is a new standard. But in the legacy systems, and the legacy systems are designed to work with VTU2. If people have a question of FHIR can replace H7 and V2, answer is definitely no. Because almost all hospitals, I would not say even 10%, it is almost all hospital works on HL7 V2. We'll talk about how that transformation of data happens. What is the trigger happening in the hospital? How? The data is transmitting from one application to another, but it is happening using HL7 V2. Can the same thing happen using FHIR? Answer is definitely yes, but can FHIR replace what is happening in A7 V2? Answer is definitely no. We'll talk about pros and cons on HL7 V2 and FHIR. FHIR is a new standard. It is not that new. It is 8-9 years old standard. People have started adopting it now. That is why it is now known as a new standard of being adopted in the hospital. These two are definitely our hit list now. This is CDRA. It is clinical document architecture. If anybody recently got admitted to the hospital, whenever they will be discharged, or during the daily visits of the hospital of the doctor to you, they will write the progress notes, and during your discharge, you will get a discharge summary. You were diagnosed with this. You have these many allergies. These many medications are prescribed to you. You have to take these medications in the morning, evening and night. CDA is a clinical document architecture. It has many templates. It has many templates within CDA as a framework. One of the template is discharge summary, progress notes, and many other. We'll talk about a couple of them when we talk about SS7V2 in DMAM message type. CDA as a template has other modules just like discharge summary. Whenever you will get discharged from the hospital, the document which is prepared, it has many sections. I think there are 52 sections within CDA which will talk about what are the observations, when was the visit happened, what procedure, any procedure done on you, all of that stuff. Whenever you will get discharged, a discharge summary will be given to you, and the template which is used is known as the discharge summary template, and it is based on the CDA framework or CDA standard, and it is also within HL7. Okay. This is also adopted by or created by HL7 org. V3, it is rarely used standard. This is a standard created on top of CDA. This is RIM based. I think it is reference integration, reference information model. It is built on top of CDA, which is a standard rarely used, and it is very complex. That is why the implementations are rare within the hospitals, and it is also on the same lines of CD8 provider domain versus payer domain. My experience goes for 11 years is only in provider domain. I have rarely touched payer domain. We'll talk about what is provider domain and payer domain now. Before we do that, let's look into this EDAX 12. EDAX 12, the insurance part, that in Indian context there is a way you can do a cashless payment. Also, if the insurance company is tied up with the hospital, they will consider this is your coverage and this much will be the claim. For example, in my case also when my wife got discharged, I was going for doing that payment. I said this is my insurance. When I showcased the insurance card, they said this is a Bajaj insurance and the coverage is, let's say, X amount considering the room, rent and all. We will give you X1. It is always a lesser amount which is as part of the parent amount. Considering the X is 1 lakh. I got 50,000 just example. This is also a step which I performed on hard copies. They did take. When I showed them the insurance card, I gave a print of that. Then they spoke to the insurance company, and when they returned back to me, they said that the coverage for you which you will get as a benefit is 50,000, and that also they wrote this is 50,000. And I got a copy of it. But in INAS context, there is a framework which is known as EDXL tool. It is a standard for peer domain where hospital. Now we'll talk about patient is getting discharged. Now when the patient is getting discharged hospital, I'll say we'll check with insurance company. It is not like hospital check with insurance company. What is the what amount you will be sending? It is like there are different set of transactions within EDX12. This works on transaction basis. I think this. ED 837 is for submitting the claim. There is a standard. There is an XML based standard. In this ED 8037, the hospital has to tell the insurance company that these are the set of procedures done. These are the medication given for the admitted patient. You tell us how much you will return back, and in return, the insurance company will send AD 835 transaction back, which is the response of the submitted claim. That out of all the procedures done, we are covering and B, as the component C is not covered as a part of our patient's insurance. This is the insurance coverage we are doing, and this is the amount we will do. Rest of the amount, you please cover it from the patient. You can read all about it. The hospital can also check whether this is covered as part of the insurance or not. There will be different set of transactions, but that is not the concept we are going to learn here. The basic is hospital will initiate to the insurance company, and insurance company will reply back with whether that is covered or not. There is another important standard. Prevailing in the market, specifically in the radiology department. Anybody knows what is radiology department? Very simple, wherever image needs to be captured. For example, let's say someone met with an accident. He went to hospital. When he will go to a hospital, doctor will definitely ask for an X-ray. That order will not go to laboratory because laboratory works on syringes and all radiology works on machines. When we say machines, it is a machine which will capture the image, the internal image of the patient. Now talking about the data. The data is flowing from a hospital to now the radiology department. It is using HL7 too. Now in this case, provider placed a. Guys, there are lab exercises. Also, you have to work with me during a working session. Please be attentive. Provider placed a, let's say, X-ray order in. In hospital terminology, whenever a request is sent to a laboratory or a radiology department, even a pathology department, it is the order. Whenever X-ray is, it's the order. Order is placed and it is sent to a radiology department. It is working using HL7 too. How this is being worked, I have not even taught you. We will understand how is used to transmit data, but we are just learning the basics. What is happening behind the scenes? What are other standards? Now this HL7 is being sent to the radiology department. Patient Jodo went to the radiology department and he said, hi radiologist, this is a term. The person who is using the machine is known as radiologist. He will say, I got your order. Let's take the machine. Now that order will be taken. The machine which is capturing the image is known as modality. Just mark this term. This is a term, a healthcare term used in lot of interoperability calls the image, for example. Now whose server is taking the image? Let's say it's X-ray machine. It will be known as modality. Ultrasound machine is known as a modality. X-ray machine is known as a modality. Now talking about the next term. Modality can only capture the image for storing purpose. Anybody knows what it is known as for storing the image? Modality will store image somewhere. It is PACS picture archiving and communication system. Modality will capture the image. PACS will store the image. Next time, anybody who wants to use that image, they have to request PACS. Now very important, if you have to request PACS, how you will request PACS and what is the response? PACS will send back. That is the standard which is brought into picture DICOM. There is a full form abbreviation to it. I definitely don't remember the abbreviation of DICOM. We can look into it also. That is where the DICOM standard was brought into picture for imaging transmission. Anybody knows what is the role of integration engine engineer? I work as an integration engineer. This is considering these are three different entities. This is our hospital. We'll talk about laboratory or we can talk about radiology because your radiology works on DICOM. Now considering a hospital who is working on HL7 your radiology works on DICOM. There is a lot of job openings. I'm not saying you start looking for a job. There's a lot of job openings for integration engineer and the company which I work for, it's purely into healthcare. What happens now? Let's consider over here and what is my role, what I do. Considering hospital works on HL7 I wrote HL7, it should be HL7 Hospital works on HL7 There is a concept of first. First, let's look into, there is a concept of integration engine. Anybody knows what is integration engine? Then you will understand what is this. It is intermediary component which will transform data from one format to another, and once it transforms, it will give you the information back also. Now considering HL7, That is where I was talking more about whether the hospital has integration with laboratory when we talked about the patient does not want to go to the laboratory, one which is within the premises, he wants to go outside. Hospital will transmit the data. I will not talk about what it will transmit as of now because it might be confusing. It will talk about HL7v2. HL7v2 will be transmitted to integration. It is not directly that the hospital will transmit data to DICOM. It can only happen if both the system talks in the same language and your hospital information has a provision to transmit the data directly to your radiology module. Now talking about hospital information system is going to transmit HL7v2 data. Now let's consider this DICOM. As I said, it is another standard. Now we know that to find an image there is a cfind query in DICOM. There is a cfind query to find that image. A get is there. There are different queries you can use to find the query and copy. Also now considering HL7v2, can we in the integration engine? We know what is the format or the contract which DICOM will accept that the data will be omitted back as an image. In the integration, let's say it's a JSON format. It's actually the XML one I am just writing. It's a JSON format. The role of integration engineer would be received. HL7 build the contract which is accepted by the DICOM. Then the DICOM will return back the response. Whatever the response is received back, you need to send it back to the hospital information in the expected format. For example, now if you send the image directly, hospital will not at all understand. Now let's say hospital says you please copy the image from PACS and put it into a directory. That is where the role of integration engineer would be. Here first role would be he would create a data processing pipeline in the integration engine. Once you create a data processing pipeline to receive the HL7, create a framework to meet the contract of the radiology department that the PACS can be queried and the data image can be copied. Once the data image is received back, then you need to send it back to the hospital information system into a directory. You to work on multiple things here, receiving a request. Let's say it's a TCP. Let's say it's a file transfer, or nowadays it is very popular. You upload it into the OZ C3 bucket. That is also everything our responsibility for integration engineer. We talked about Uzanzo. It's a public or creating multiple standards to improve the interoperability of workflows. And all now talking about what is HL7. We talked about ULS and OD. We talked about there are different standards within HL7. Or there are outside standard also XFilTone, COM. But what is actually HL7? Within HL7 or we have HL7 V2. What we are going to learn. But what is the meaning of this HL7? It is health level SEN. V2 is the version 2. We'll talk about what is this V2. Before we go, why don't they add HL7 1, 1 being the number 1, right? Why only 7? It is the number 7 came from OC model number 7th layer is the application layer. Number 7th layer is the application layer and HL7. HL7 organization says that HL7 V2 standard works on the application layer. That is where HL7 V2 came into picture. Clear what is HL? We'll talk about V2 now. Whenever you will work on HL7 V2, people usually say it is V.V2.x. Here x varies from 0 to 9. What is this? These are all the versions of HL7 V2. Whenever you will work on it, it will be HL7. It will be HL7 V2.2, the current version in the market. 7.2. There are intermediate. For example, you might also find HL7 V2.31. That is also possible. I'm just talking about that this is the release within 2.3. But this is the release, a framework for HL7 v2. The number X is from 0 to 9 and the current latest version. This is also exam question. What is the latest version of HL7 v2 in the market? The latest version is HL7 2.9. It is pretty old. All hospitals in us works on v2 because the which is created for it might be all scripts, it might be Epic, CERN or NextGen, all of them are capable of consuming HL7 v2 as a data model. It's a pretty old standard. This is all the forward compatible. The v2.9. When you say all of the fields which are, I'm taking some level words which you will understand in just some time. If you see 2.9, it's the latest version, but the previous version which was there. It is backward compatible. For example, if 2.8 is also there, 2.9 will also support 0.9 will also support 2.8. Interesting part is v2 PEX works on messages. Whenever you will go on a call, or even if you have to troubleshoot this. This is a term you might hear very frequently. I received a message. The message didn't came. Can you check the order message where it is stuck? Something of that sort. But message is something which you will definitely hear. It might be order message, patient registration message. How do you identify all of those messages? That we will learn. But now, what is a message? It's some data payload which I want to send it to someone. Correct now, and anything what you can tell. What is message built of? Message is built of somebody now talking about HL7 v2. What is a message? Message is consisting of group of segments. We'll look into each one of it. Message consists of group of segments. Segment consists of fields. Field consists of components. Components consists of subcomponents. This is if I tell you what is one message, you will find some segments. Within some segments, you will find some field. Within some field, you will find some components populated. Within some components, you will find subcomponents populated. Now, talking about how do you. First thing is, do I have something copied? Nice, nobody will ask you to write a message, but I will tell you to write a message because I will tell you the reason behind it once you know the rules to read and write a message. It is pretty straightforward thing. Now let's look into, as I said, this entire stuff. I just copied a random message. It is a one message. Now we talked about you. You understood what is the message correct. You don't worry how I wrote it. We will look into the specification. We will just look into what all things are there now. This entire thing is a message. It can have a bigger length also. If I will show you, there are some more messages with the bigger length. This length depends upon the specification. This is another term which I will be taking continuously. It will be dependent on specification, reading and writing a specification. We will look in some time. Now, very important part, what is a segment? We'll talk about what is a segment. Segment is actually logical grouping of fields. When I say logical grouping of fields, we'll talk about the logic. There are a couple of rules for a segment. Segment always have a segmented. It is always 3 characters. Now here, identifying the segment might be tricky on integration engine. It is pretty straightforward. There are different rules to it. Let me first show you something. I usually go to characteristic site. There is a site, not a HL7 or authorized site, but it is a site which will give you a lot of information. I usually go to this site. I will share the links. Also another, this is not HL7 authorized site, guys. If you want anything official data, please look into the documentation. I will give you the documents for the 2.9. Also in your free time, you can read about it. Here it is clearly defined that mesh is a segment, IM is a segment, P8 is a segment, PD1 is a segment, INK1 is a segment, and all of the 3 characters, it's alphanumeric characters, which you are seeing here. This is a group. Within this group, there are another segment. We will try. We will understand how to read this group. Another segment, and if you see these many segments are possible within at HL1, which is the admit notification. We will again look into it. In this case, I have Misha as a segment, I have a Evan as a segment, I have a paid as a segment, I have a PV1 as a segment. This is clear. I have 4 segments present here. Now talking about second one, what is your fields? Field is anything between makes sense. Sending application will be one field. Mouse Mickey till here is the entire another field. The next one is component. I would say caret separated data between a field. This is very important. What can be a component? Looking to this sample, I can increase the font. This is also. This entire is a field. Talking about components. This is the first component. Second one is empty. Third component, we'll talk about how to read a message. This is another component. Perfect. Let me see if I have something for subcomponent. Otherwise, I will create one. I have one more message where I see a subcomponent. I will just copy this segment. What is the subcomponent? %, separated data between a component. Now anybody who will look into, I'll just copy this thing above that you can read also, who will look into line number 192 and can tell me what can be a subcomponent. First, identify where is subcomponent present. It is present. Now what is subcomponent present? It is a field. It is not a message. It is a field. Now considering m caret is a. This is a component. This is a component. Now I found another component. It is ending here. This is another component. If you ask me, this is one component. But what is the subcomponent? MI is the first subcomponent within the component. This is the second subcomponent within the comp, within that same component. This is the third. ASO is the third subcomponent within that component. Is this clear? If this is clear, we will talk about some more interesting concepts of reading a message. There are only two rules. How do you read a message and anybody is aware of? How do we read a HL7 message? Then we will look into the specification, because before I go here, you might not be confused. What am I talking about? Correct segment is. But we'll talk about it. There is one rule for Mish. Second is rule for all other segments. Now talking about what is the rule for mesh and what is the rule for all other segments. How do you read it? Now considering what is the rule for mesh HL7 says, this is the notation. Even if you read, even if you get a specification from a client also, they might write it in max to max, I think 3, 4 formats. The preferred one is the first one. This is how is the preferred format for exchanging the specification. When I say specification, it is the word document for the other person to know what you are going to send in what field. I usually prefer the first one, and that is how my company also follows. Mishwa. What HL7 says is the only rule for reading. Mesh's pipe is the first character. Pipe is the first character. Next, anything between two pipes is the sari. I said character. Sorry, this is anything between two pipes is the next field. Here if anybody will work with me, as I said, if I have to say Mish 1, let's write the specification. Now I will write it here. Let's write the specification. Anybody who will tell me what is Mish 2? The only rule is this one. I will write the rule also. This is the rule. Based on this rule, can you tell me what is mesh 2? I told you mesh 1 is pipe. This is the pipe. This is first field and it is always pipe. What is this mesh 2? I am in mesh, which is the message header segment we will talk about. How do I know all this? That is another concept. What is mesh 2? Mesh H2 is this field. We are talking about field. This is special character. It is in HL7 terminologies. These are known as encoding characters. We'll talk about it. Encoding characters, and we'll talk about encoding characters separately. Anybody who will tell me Mish 7. You need to focus and read. It's a number. we'll talk about what is that number? This is 3. Anything between pipe? This is 4. This might take some time for you to grab. This is 5. This is 6 as the world wrap is there. Data went in the next line. Anything between the pipe is 7. This is 7. Can anyone tell me what is a message 14 here? It's a blank. It's a blank. Nothing is there. It's a blank. Now going one step more. This is known as a proper one full-fledged field. Can there be more data? We will talk about it thus, but we will working on the sample what I got it from the notepad file. Now let's look into if someone asks you. If someone says, what is if? If you ask style, what is there in Mish 9? I will tell you this is I am going to send. There is 2 components to it. Now if you have to deep dive into the component thing, what is Miss Knife and one? Anybody who will tell me at, because I have already told you caret, separated data. Separated data is 1 is this, 1 is this, 2 is this. These are the 2 subcomponents. This is a component, not subcomponent. Subcomponent is separated by ampersand. Now let's look into. There was a bit. I copied right. Where is that bit? Bit. Oh, we'll copy it one more time. We will look into the second rule. Second rule is for all other segments except mesh. Rule is pretty straightforward. Rule says anything between 2 pipes is a field. Now anybody who will tell me PID.5, what is PID5? It is a single rule for all other segments. Even it is PID, even if it is PV1, even everything. Only rule is for mesh, it is this one. If I bring a bigger message and if I will say what is aux. Let's consider this ob14 op. I am considering the last ops only obx14. What is oxtivum? Let's not look into all. I will just this one pulled. Just looking into this, it's a platelet count for a patient. It is 21. It is observation. Any message. If you look it will have a message. We will learn how. How do you know that it will have a message? That is a specification thing. Don't cram it. And then there are some set of segments. Rule will be same. If you know how to read one message, you can read n number of messages. Just 5 I didn't showcase you. There are apps to visualize the tool, this messages. But I want you to learn first, then I will showcase everything. There are tools, just like HL7 test tool, for example. This is some sample at sample. I have kept it. It will showcase what all segments you have. Now, if you want to expand your messy one is if you want to validate my knowledge also, please do. Is pipe. 2 is encoding characters. Your 3 is it is only having namespace id. There can be another component. If you want to add it, you can add. These are the tools. You can just say test. Then let's look into. This is a tool. It is HL7 test tool, paid tool. There is HL7 soup. There is another tool. Just to use, there is 7 edit. There is HL7 soup. In my last class, I just showcased one crack. For this, I will not showcase. because then the person who was organizing that training who coordinated with me, he said we should not tell the hacks. I am not going to do it now. You can find it on Google if possible. Let's not do it here. 7edit is a tool. HL7 is tool. In my company, HL7 test tool is another tool which is created to send some messages, and we can send some data also. There is a way you can configure the port and you can send the samples also. We will learn definitely about it. There are another emulators also created. In my company, we have another emulator created which will receive the messages just like creating. You can consider this to be a simulator. I created a new patient. I created a some visit. If I will just move how to do admit, update, merge, whatever. You can place orders also. This is irritating. I will find a patient. This is my new patient. I can click. I can create a new order. You can create let's say it's a T scan. It is for chest scan. I will create an order. There are emulators people create. There are emulators online also available, but HL7 is a good tool. Soup is another good tool to work. With that, you can visualize your message. Whatever we did manually there, you can do it via tool. And finally, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to our channel.